Welcome back to the Scaling Up podcast. Today, I just got back from the 10X GrowthCon in the States. I think there were 7 billionaires there this time. It was one of the best lineups ever. And getting around successful people like that, you can take little things from each of them and then kind of look at what all of them combined are saying, right? Do they all have the same message? Going to these conferences, really has changed my life probably more than everything else that I've done combined, right? It's really inspired me. You go there, for sure, the first one I ever went to, it just really opened my eyes. I'd never been around people with this level of success. Didn't think it was possible for me. You go there and you hear their stories, and you get a sense they're not educated, they're not smarter than us. They're none of these things. They're just regular people that had a plan, stuck with it, and just hammered that plan for 10, 20, 30 years. And that really gave me the courage to go do my business, because I was like, I'm not the smartest guy. I don't have an advantage over anybody, but I do have that. I can just grind it out for 20 years if that's what it's going to take, if that's one of the keys. So the first speaker was Ivan Kaufman. He runs Arbor Realty, so they have about a $42 billion, real estate loan portfolio. He's someone I had never really heard speak before. Really articulate, great story. And what I thought was interesting, a lot of the conversation was based on Trump wants to take his real estate public, his company public, and he was asking Ivan, who obviously works with all the public companies, his thoughts on it. And it was nothing but positive. Like Ivan said, if once you get past the setup phase and the regulation, he said it's way easier than trying to scale this, raising money privately like you've done, and for sure getting to a big level. He said, you've done the hard part. It's just going to get easier to go public. And what really caught me there was I think in business in general, you get so much advice unsolicited or from people who shouldn't be giving you advice, right? So in a case like this, if you went to ask 10 people who'd never went public before what they thought of it, they're all going to tell you, no, there's too much regulation, it's too much headache, you shouldn't do it. But you ask a guy who's actually done it and done it at a hugely successful level, he's going to tell you the opposite, right? So you need to make sure when you're getting business advice from people that it's, they're at the point you want to be in life. They're not just slightly above you. They can help you get there, but they don't know what it takes to get to the next level. And that was kind of a theme through the whole thing as you look at these people, and I want to take advice from them. They're at places I want to be. So the next speaker was Kirk. Followed him for a long time, really like him. If I learned one thing from him, it's easy to see him today where he's got billions of views, huge following. He raises hundreds of millions of dollars for politics. And what you miss is how he got there, right? Because it just looks like, he posts some videos and he gets people excited about it. But in reality, he said he traveled 350 days a year for years, flying to different colleges to do these debates. He has tons of death threats on his life all the time. He did 180 red-eye flights over 3 years. It's so easy to just look at someone and once they're successful and think like, anybody could do that, or that could be so easy. But almost nobody's willing to put in the amount of time and work that he did, and now he's massively successful. He's shifting the political view of youth across the country, which will have lots of long-term effects. He's probably doing more, for the conservative movement in the United States than any politician is, or than he ever could being in politics. And the next speaker was Eric Trump. Anytime I see any of the Trump kids, I always think, I kind of feel sorry for them, because it doesn't matter what they're going to do in life. It's going to be so hard to get out of their dad's shadow, because he's such a big person. Eric Trump runs the Trump organization, so a huge company, all these hotels. That takes a special person to be able to do that. And at the end of everybody just looks at him as Donald Trump's son, right? But in reality, in business, he's done some really big things, and he runs that whole organization and probably doesn't get the credit he should. So he talked a lot about just the one story he told that was pretty cool. He's staying at the Trump Hotel in Vegas, and he said they have zero debt on that building and it's 100% occupied right now. So just think of how much money that is making. It was kind of cool to hear. But he talked about the details. So in their company, obviously their brand is, I don't know what you'd call it, luxury or quality. So anything they do, right, it has to be at a very high level. That's what people pay for. And he said it's not just like, it's very easy to go say, hey, keep the common areas clean. But their company, him in particular, he said, when I go, I want to go into the mechanical room and I want to see it's as clean as our lobby. So it's perfectly painted. There's no dust on any of the electrical outlets or the boiler or anything. It's the mechanical room should be as clean as the common areas. And that attention to detail, goes a long ways. The last, 5-10 minutes, I found it interesting because he used his time to talk about crypto. To hear, I guess a lot of people do, but to hear why him or his family got into it was, he said when his dad started getting canceled for everything, a bunch of the big banks called and said, hey, you have to close your accounts within a week. And there was no reason for it. There was political bias. There was no justification for why they would do that. And if you have, 1,000 employees taking payroll and all these things from an account, it's impossible to switch in that short of time. But it really did sour, I guess, the Trumps on the banking system, and rightfully so. So he sees crypto as a way where in the future they can kind of bypass the banks, bypass the banking system, and I think inevitably cripple the banks, right? I don't think they would like anything more than to have something replace the banks and our reliance on the banks. And I don't know if that would be good or bad, or if that could even happen, but knowing that that's maybe where the mindset of the administration is good to know, because I think they'll do what they can to really boost the crypto space and help it as much as they can, maybe just vindictively to get back at the banks, and that's fine. I think even in Canada, when they froze people's bank accounts and stuff, we've seen the banks aren't always there to serve your best interest, and if there was some more competition out there, it probably wouldn't be the worst thing. So Roger Herjavec was there, seen him speak before. He's just great. He's got so much energy, and he seems like such a kind, nice person. But I guess the one takeaway that ties into everybody else, he talked about meeting Elon Musk, and Robert's very much a micromanager, and he said his whole career has been told you shouldn't do this. You need to let things go. You need to delegate. And he said he had a meeting with Elon Musk, and so he brought this up because he heard Elon was also a micromanager, and Elon said, well, actually, no. He said, I'm a nano-manager. He said, I go even more into the details on every single thing. And at that point, he had about thousands of employees, and he's still everybody manager and up. Elon personally interviewed to make sure they're the right fit for his company. And that was kind of a cool story to hear. I thought it was just, it's crazy, and it ties into what a lot of the other people talked about. Another speaker that I had never heard of and I just absolutely loved was Bob Duggan. So he's worth $14 billion. He gets a lot of crap, I think, online. He's the biggest funder to the Scientology church and stuff, so people discredit, or for whatever reason, discredit him. But I thought he was just really good, and he had a way, I don't know what the word, like big think, like you would ask a question and he would expand it so big. I think he lost a lot of the people in the room, but I really got inspired by it. It was cool when he came out. They introduced him and they said he's worth $14.2 billion. And then he just kind of laughed and he said, the markets are down. It's only 13.8 today. And I just thought, that's a crazy perspective, because some of the other speakers were only worth 400 million. And you're like, man, this is the most successful person ever. And here Bob will lose and make that back in a day. And he didn't even know, right? He doesn't even think about it. So that level of wealth is very hard to comprehend. And he was much more, not like tactical business advice, just much more like mindset and thinking bigger. And Grant asked him how important having the right idea is. And Bob did this whole explanation of it, but he said, so many people maybe laugh or talk about how manifestation and stuff doesn't work. But he said every single thing is an idea. It started with an idea, right? If I want to pick up my phone, I have to think about it first, then I do it. You make that happen, right? That is a kind of a version of manifestation in a way where anything you do, product you look at was an idea first, then it got made. So maybe we do need to just have these bigger ideas, right? That's what, for me, going to these conferences do. Nobody's talking about growing their business just 2% a year. It's like, it's big ideas and you're going for it and you put it out into the world and things come back. So he had a good way of describing that. And it kind of made me think of, I'd heard a quote just last week, and it said, what if God said yes to you? And it's like, what if everything you'd asked for in the last week, he said yes? How different would the world look, right? Like, what are you really asking for in life? Are you asking for the strength and guidance to go do something world changing, or are you asking for traffic to be 5 minutes faster so you're not late to your meeting? And I think that it's just an interesting mindset of when you think bigger and and you have bigger ideas, you can go for it, and versus just kind of getting trapped and thinking that everything's small or that you can't make things happen. So the next person was my favorite out of the whole event. I obviously knew he was a person, never had seen him, never had heard one word he said, but it was Jimmy John's, the guy who started Jimmy John's subs in the States. And he had just an unreal energy. He was just right away, everyone in the crowd loved him. He was happy. He's a big guy, and it was really cool. And the part that I took away that I liked the most was he talked about, the first 10 years of his business, he had 10 restaurants. And he said, I literally, I was making the sandwiches, I was cleaning the bathrooms, I was going to every store and checking on them. And prior to that, even, like, the way he got started was really neat. He wanted to start a hot dog stand. He went to his dad and asked for a $25,000 loan. And his dad said, I'll give you the 25 grand. If you make it, I own 49% of the company. If you don't make it, you have to join the military. And so he priced out all the equipment, and it ended up being like $35,000 to start. So he went back to his dad and said, hey, I just need 10 more grand. And his dad said, join the military. He said, this is it for you. You have 25,000, you make it work, or you join the military. And he's like, I realized he was serious. And so he said, I looked for a different business, and he found sandwiches. He said, all you need is a fridge, meat cutter, and some bread. So he found a garage, and he started the company out of there, and he made it work. And it was cool to see too, because you could make all the business plans in the world, but for him, his dad had went bankrupt years earlier with a business and just went, for a job. And so for him, his dad always taught him, you can't take debt. You have to, balance everything. So he said, I think till they had 100 restaurants, they ran that entire business from checkbooks, and they would balance one side and the other. And anytime they got a bill in, it would be paid the same day. And so, you can start a business any way you want. But the big takeaway, first 10 years, you had 10 restaurants doing everything. The next 10 years, they had 250 restaurants. And then the following 10, they had 2,500. And I think it's so important for people to keep that long-term vision, right? At the beginning, it doesn't matter what you look at. You look at Charlie Kirk's social media views, or you look at the restaurants, or you look at any of this. The line is so incrementally, it's barely moving up for the first 10 years. It won't feel like anything, because really owning 10 sandwich shops versus one, it's just going to be 10 times more work. Like, that's the reality of it. And you're going to be so beat down and so tired. And then the next 10, you have 250, and you're probably then you're starting to make money. But it gets even harder to then, when you probably don't have to be in the day-to-day and all that, to then go to the 2,500, right? That's the next step that most people just will never do. You'll get to the 250, and you just kind of relax. And he talked about that too. He talked about the sacrifices. Like he said, at the beginning, that anyone who wanted a franchise, they would give it to him. And a lot of people, it wasn't working out because it was so hard to run. So he said, I started bringing people in, and I would tell them, look, for the first couple of years, you will miss every wedding. You will miss every funeral. You will miss every weekend. You won't be able to attend your kids' stuff. And he said, I just told them how hard it would be. And he said, I thought nobody would ever open a franchise again, but it kind of went the opposite. He said, we got the people who were attracted to that, who knew that's what it took, would open, and they'd be wildly successful. And all the people who, weren't going to make it wouldn't. But he actually teared up, and he said, I guess even maybe it was a regret or whatever, but he said, I literally missed the first 15 years of my kid's life. And he said, I've done everything I can now to make up for it, and we have a great relationship, but that is what it took to get there. And I think that it's missed, you see business people, and for sure going there, you see all these people who are at the end of their career and successful, like, I want that. But do you want what it took to get there, right? Do you want to miss things and put in the 25 years of shit? And I think people miss that, and it's hard to do. Alex Hormozi talks about, instead of making a list of your goals and here's what I'll do to get there, he said, put your goal on one side and then make a list on the other of what things you're willing to sacrifice, right? And then you have to sacrifice. That's hanging out with your friends. That's maybe changing your friend group. Maybe it's moving. Whatever those things are, you have to be willing to sacrifice those to get the other side. And if you're not, the reality is it just won't happen. There was not a single person there that was like, yeah, we built this huge company and got wildly successful and just had the best social life, right? We had all this time. We had our weekends off. people can say whatever they want about working less and making more. You won't get really, when people are successful, they can do it, but the grind to get there, I don't believe exists. I don't believe you'll be able to have that perfect balance. It just doesn't exist. And maybe massive success isn't what everybody wants, and that's fine. You can have the balance and kind of figure out what that is. The next person, again, never heard of him, and he's changed the world almost, probably as much as anybody else, and it was Howard Hamm. He's the guy that invented directional drilling. He has the largest privately owned oil and gas company in the world. He's by far the biggest speaker that's ever spoke there. He's $20-some billion guy. He flew in from Texas. It's interesting too, because a guy like him, he's not coming there for a speaker fee. He won't even take money, right? He's coming there just to get back. He flew from Louisiana into Vegas just to speak and it was the shortest one is 25 minutes, right? But he wanted to get back, and I think that's really inspiring to see. His big takeaways, it was how you had to have faith in your business. You have to believe what you're doing will work, right? And oil and gas, I think, would be more than any other industry where it's so cyclical and there's downtimes and then the really highs are great and everyone busts out in the downtimes, and that you have to go. And he said, there was a point when he started out that they drilled 17 dry holes in a row, and it costs, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to drill those holes. And he said, every time, you have on hole 18, you have to have as much faith that you're going to hit as you did on hole number 1 or hole number 2. And it was cool to hear, because I think people, it's so easy to get beat down and you have a loss or two, and it's easy to lose that faith. But if you really believe in what you're doing, I think that goes a long ways. The next one was kind of more of a keynote than an interview, and it was Mike Rowe, like the Dirty Jobs guy. Out of all the speakers I've ever seen, I think storytelling wise, he's one of the best. He gets the crowd involved, and he's brilliant at it. And his big message was he's doing right now, he runs a big foundation for getting people involved in the trades. So he says, we borrow money that we don't have to kids who will never pay it back to go get degrees for jobs that will never exist, that won't exist in the future. And I think, but not enough people are doing trades, right? And it's becoming a huge problem. Like, the company that makes the nuclear submarines for the States is looking for 150,000 tradespeople right now, and they can't fill those jobs. And they went to him and said, "What can we do? Like, this does become a matter of national security. If we can't make our own, subs and ships and stuff, if we don't have the tradespeople, what do we do if things turn bad?" And he kind of told him, he said, "Your answer to this is in your grade 8 students," right? So he runs a foundation that gets people involved in trades younger. He said you can kind of see a shift in when there started to be a problem is when we started taking, mandatory or shop class out of a lot of the schools, and kids weren't exposed to it. And I'd 100% agree that it's hard. Like, I grew up in rural Manitoba, so we were always just fixing stuff and doing stuff. You were around it, building. But in the city, it's a different vibe, and that's where most of the people are, right? We took our kids' school on a field trip the other day, last year, and we went to a park in the city, right? Paved pathways, everything. Some of the kids were too scared to go into the bush, like to go in on the path into the bush, because they'd never been in what they called nature. I'm like, this isn't even nature. This is a city park. But you really realize how people, that is how people are growing up. So the thought of being a plumber or electrician is probably so foreign to someone. And the reality is those jobs in the next 10 years, you're going to make a way better living, and you could have an awesome business being a tradesperson versus going and getting a degree in a white collar job, which AI is going to replace a lot of that, right? And then, we watched that thing, and then I was on Instagram later, and I seen Brock University is putting out a course called Swift History, and it's on the history of Taylor Swift, right? And it's like, imagine you're an adult going to getting, your parents or you are paying for a class to help you get a degree in Taylor Swift history. Like, there's no employer in the world that is looking for that, or what are you giving the world back, right? So I think it was just a great message. He talked a lot about working hard, how we have to get people involved. We have and the numbers I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but it was like 7 million working age men are sitting on unemployment actively not looking for work, and then we have 6 million job vacancies. So there shouldn't be that gap, right? We have to get people incentivized to get off EI and want to go work and to work in trades. If you can make 100 or 150 grand a year doing some of these jobs, that's an unreal living, and it's a great job. You'll feel fulfilled. You're building something, right? You have to get people inspired. And then Grant ended it off with kind of a keynote at the end, and it's cool because it's not only, it was kind of like his curtain call, and you could tell he was emotional about it, and he's grown this from nothing. And he talked about it. He said when we started the company, how hard that is from where he was to, he's got billions of dollars in real estate, billions of dollars in other companies that he runs now. Now he's going to run for governor of California. He's doing big things. So it's cool. I've always said I would go to this conference if it was just him talking for 3 days.